Nirvana didn't just flip the music world upside down. They rewrote the rules. Before Kurt Cobain, bands were expected to say yes. Yes to bigger tours, yes to bigger bands, yes to more exposure. But Nirvana didn't play that game. Kurt's honesty, his morals, and his complete refusal to compromise made the band unpredictable, fearless, and sometimes downright controversial. At the absolute peak of their fame, Nirvana turned down offers most bands would have killed for. Stadium tours, legendary acts, life-changing money, and they walked away. These are 10 bands Nirvana refused to tour with, and the real reasons why. Number 10. Skid Row. In 1991, Skid Row were massive. Their album Slave to the Grind debuted at number 1 on the charts, selling over 130,000 copies in its first week, unheard of numbers for a heavy metal band at the time. They invited Nirvana to open for them on tour. Nirvana didn't hesitate. They said no. To Kurt Cobain, Skid Row represented everything grunge was pushing against, especially their image and behavior, which he felt were openly homophobic. What truly sealed it was a controversy surrounding Skid Row's singer, Sebastian Bach. In 1989, Bach was photographed wearing a shirt that read, "AIDS kills F.S. dead." It was supposedly meant as a joke, but it landed as cruel, ignorant, and hateful. MTV aired the image immediately, and the backlash was explosive. Bach later claimed he grabbed the shirt without thinking, saying a fan had thrown it on stage. Even his own bandmate Rachel Bolan warned him not to wear it, but the damage was already done. For Kurt Cobain, a vocal supporter of LGBTQ rights, this crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. In the liner notes for Incesticide, Kurt made his stance crystal clear. If you're sexist, racist, or homophobic, don't come to our shows. Don't buy our records. Skid Row became an easy no. Number 9. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne personally invited Nirvana to join his No More Tour's farewell tour in 1992, what was supposed to be his final goodbye to music. The two acts crossed paths in 1991 at Devonshire Sound Studios while Nirvana was mixing Nevermind. Ozzy was working down the hall on his own project, and during breaks, Kurt and Dave Grohl would play pool nearby. They were starstruck, but the encounters were awkward. Ozzy was heavily intoxicated at the time. Kurt later described having to press himself against the wall just to let Ozzy stumble past him in the hallway. Despite this, Ozzy liked Nirvana and wanted them on the tour. Kurt respected Ozzy. He loved Black Sabbath, admired Ozzy's early solo work, and understood the musical connection. But Nirvana didn't want to spend their moment opening in massive arenas for someone else. They were done being a support act. Years later, Ozzy admitted he barely remembered the encounters, and regretted not being more present. In his autobiography, he wrote how proud he was that Kurt was a fan. Still, the answer back then was no. Number 8. U2. This one surprised a lot of people. Bono personally invited Nirvana to join U2's massive Zoo TV World Tour. In March of 1992, Nirvana attended a U2 show in Montreal, not to see U2, but to watch the Pixies open. Backstage, Dave Grohl was suddenly pulled into Bono's dressing room, where Bono spent nearly an hour lecturing him about fame, success, and responsibility. Then came the offer. Nirvana turned it down. To Kurt Cobain, U2 represented everything he didn't want Nirvana to become: stadium rock, corporate polish, mainstream excess. Kurt refused to open in giant arenas. Nirvana was a punk band at heart, and Kurt believed touring with U2 would be the ultimate sellout. Bono famously told Dave, "Never say never." Ironically, just 1 year later, Nirvana was headlining arenas. But in 1992, Kurt wasn't ready to cross that line. Number 7. AC/DC. Kurt Cobain loved AC/DC. At first, they were one of the first bands he learned to play when he picked up a guitar at 14. The riffs, the energy, the power, it all pulled him in. But as Kurt grew older and discovered punk rock, his perspective changed. He began to really hear the lyrics. In multiple interviews, Kurt explained that while he enjoyed the music, the constant objectification of women made him deeply uncomfortable. What once sounded rebellious now felt empty and sexist. Eventually, Kurt sold his entire AC/DC collection, along with Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith, for just $12. He didn't want to be associated with bands whose lyrics conflicted with his feminist values. So despite loving the music as a kid, Kurt refused to tour with AC/DC. Number 6. Rush. Rush invited Nirvana to open for them on their Roll the Bones tour, a massive arena run across North America and Europe. Once again, Nirvana declined. Kurt grouped Rush in with other corporate rock acts and explained it simply. He didn't want Nirvana playing huge venues unless they were headlining themselves. This decision crushed Dave Grohl. Dave idolized Rush drummer Neil Peart. Hearing 2112 as a kid literally changed his life and inspired him to become a drummer. Years later, Dave called inducting Rush into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one of the most emotional moments of his career. But back then, Kurt's rule stood firm: no opening for anyone. Number 5. Pearl Jam. This wasn't just a refusal. This was war. Kurt Cobain publicly blasted Pearl Jam in interviews, calling them corporate sellouts and fake grunge. He accused them of jumping on the alternative bandwagon for money and image. To Kurt, Pearl Jam represented labels packaging rebellion and selling it back to kids. A big part of this feud came from Kurt's loyalty to Mudhoney's Mark Arm, whose band Green River had broken up badly with Pearl Jam members Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament. Things got ugly in the press. But in a strange twist, peace was quietly made backstage at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards when Kurt and Eddie Vedder's slow dance together, pushed into the moment by Courtney Love. Kurt admitted Eddie was passionate and respectable, even if he still didn't like Pearl Jam's music. Number 4. The Grateful Dead. Kurt Cobain absolutely hated the Grateful Dead. He wore a shirt that read, "Kill the Grateful Dead," and his interviews made it clear this wasn't ironic. To Kurt, the Dead symbolized the failure of the 1960s hippie movement, peace and love that turned into corporate nostalgia. He despised jam bands, tie-dye culture, and what he saw as empty, directionless music. Nirvana even mocked hippie ideals directly in Territorial Pissings, turning a peace anthem into pure chaos. For Kurt, the Grateful Dead weren't just uncool, they were everything he rejected. Number 3. Metallica. Metallica wanted Nirvana on the biggest stadium tour of the decade, alongside Guns N' Roses. Kirk Hammett personally called Kurt. They were friends. Kurt loved Metallica. He respected them deeply. But the answer was still no. Kurt told Kirk he would play with Metallica anywhere, anytime, just not if Guns N' Roses were involved. Lars Ulrich later confirmed it. The money didn't matter. Kurt refused to share a stage with Axl Rose. Metallica later paid tribute to Kurt many times after his death, with James Hetfield calling Smells Like Teen Spirit one of the greatest songs ever written. Number 2. Led Zeppelin. Kurt adored Led Zeppelin's guitar work, but hated their lyrics. As a teenager, he learned Stairway to Heaven note for note. But later, he couldn't ignore the sexism embedded in many of their songs. So he sold his entire Zeppelin collection. Nirvana would occasionally cover Zeppelin songs privately in the studio, but Kurt refused to tour with them or publicly promote their legacy. Talent wasn't enough if the message felt wrong. Number 1. Guns N' Roses. This was the ultimate feud. Axl Rose wouldn't stop calling Kurt in 1992, trying to get Nirvana on tour. At first, Axl was a fan. He even wore a Nirvana hat in a music video. But everything collapsed fast. Kurt openly called Axl sexist, racist, and homophobic, especially targeting the song One in a Million. The feud exploded at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards after Axl threatened Kurt and Courtney backstage. On stage, Dave Grohl mocked Axl into the microphone during Lithium, sealing the rivalry forever. For Kurt, Guns N' Roses represented everything he stood against: ego, misogyny, and empty rebellion. So those are 10 bands Nirvana refused to tour with. Every choice Kurt Cobain made wasn't about ego or fame. It was about staying true to what he believed in, no matter the cost. And those decisions didn't just shape Nirvana. They changed music history. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into rock history. This is Yosh Backstage Tales. And I'll see you backstage next time.